Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on a 2000 F350 doing the rear brakes. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Alright, so here we are with a 2000 F350 Dully, and we have to do the rear brakes. In the previous video saw we did the front brakes, so now we're doing the rears. It's a little bit involved, and so it's drizzling out, so I will be putting a tarp over the top, so if it gets a little dark, I'm sorry, but that's why I'm just trying to stay dry. Plus I have to pull the axle out, and if I can keep that as dry as possible, so it doesn't get flash rust on it. So let me get set up and we'll get going. Alright, so here we're under my makeshift tent. It's been raining here for past 2 days, and I have 3 out of the 4 brakes done, so I need to get this done to get it inspected. So the first thing we want to do is we want to loosen the lug nuts. They are fairly deep in there, so we'll use an extension and a breaker bar just to break them loose. And then once they're loose, then we can use an impact to finish them off. So get that situated. Alright, so these are 21 millimeter. Because it's so deep, in order to be able to use the breaker bar, I need to use a long extension, which if you were trying to use the long extension with the impact, this extension will absorb a lot of the vibration of the impact and negate its use. So break them loose with a breaker bar. And they are on there good. Okay, they are all broken loose now. Something I picked up is this 6,000 pound Unijack. Not a sponsor, but I'll put a link in the description. I got them off of Amazon. So this is a combination of a bottle jack and a jack stand, and as you jack it up, once it hits the teeth on the jack stand, it will allow you to then lower it down onto the lock, similar to a car lift in an auto shop. So it is fairly secure. Picked up 2 of them. Wasn't sure how I was going to like them, but they're working pretty good. So I'll put a link in the description below. So they have a pin you can take out, and you can adjust your starting height via these holes right here. So you slide it down in, and then you put your pin through whatever hole you want to start at to get it close to where the jack point, and then comes with handle which has a little clover in it to allow you to loosen and tighten the bottle jack part, and then it is your handle to jack the unit up. So as it's jacking up, you can watch this, and it'll raise up, and then it'll fall down, and that tells you that you're at a tooth. And if the car is high enough, then you can then lower the jack down a little slowly, and it'll fall down onto the tooth and lock it in place. So I have it situated here underneath the axle, right past the spring shackles. Although the shock absorber looks like it might be in the way. Well, we'll see. I might have to go with little throws. You can see it's starting to move now, and there it is. See how it dropped down? And you can take and loosen the screw a little bit slowly, and it'll come down onto the lock. And now it's held by not only the bottle jack portion, but also now a jack stand. And you tighten that back up, and you just put the handle there for safekeeping, and now you are secure to work on your vehicle. All right, now we can take our 21mm on our impact and just spin the lug nuts off. So we broke them loose. Now if you're working up on a lift, keep in mind that these are very heavy. If you're down on the ground like me, it's not so much because there's nowhere for them to fall. Alright, so we have those loose. Alright, so we have those off. We'll slide the first tire off. Out of the way. Being a dually, has a secondary wheel. I've been very fortunate that these have not been corroded on. Sometimes they are, and you really have to beat them to get them off. Okay, so here we are. Now with this dually, I'm not sure all because I haven't worked on all of them. But on the 2000 F350, I believe it's the same as the 250 with the dually. It has this extension on it. If you remember from the front brake video, there'll be a link in the description if you haven't seen it. It also has an extension. Now the front one, you reach through and take some nuts off that attach to the lug bolts that are sticking out of the hub, the front hub. On this one here, this unit is actually bolted to the rotor from the rear. So you need to take this whole assembly off in order to remove this. In order to do that, you have to take the axle out. We'll wait on taking the axle out until after I take the caliper off. So we'll get that going. All right, so the slide bolts are 14 millimeter. And from the looks of this caliper, hopefully it is still good. The other rear was still good, but we'll see. There's one loose. And two loose. All right, take those out. You can take a screwdriver or some other prying device and put it down in here, and you want to pry against, get the screwdriver in front of the rotor and pull it back towards you. And what you're doing is you're pulling the caliper forward and pushing the pistons back in to try and get some compression on, and get some tension off of the caliper. Hopefully it'll come loose without too much effort. Well, here's hoping it doesn't break like the driver's side front caliper. Unfortunately, I didn't film that, but the caliper pistons froze to the brake pad, rusted to them, and shattered when I went to try and take it off. And this one's acting the same way that did before it shattered. So you may get to see that. Hopefully not. I don't want to buy another caliper, but I will if I have to. This piston does not seem to want to go in, so it's probably frozen like the front one was. But we'll still try and work it. Alright, so before I go and destroy it, what I'm going to do is I'll take the bracket bolts off and see if I can get it off by pushing the pads into the middle. Those are an 18. On there good. Okay, Eric, where is it? Maybe, you left it in the truck. I remember now. On the front seat. There we go. Gravity. There's the caliper off. So if you look at the caliper, the boots are all ripped. So this was frozen. You can see how bad that pad was. Took all the material off. The outside pad still had some life in it, but the caliper itself froze, which is why I couldn't push the pistons in. So I'll have to go and get a new caliper. So I'll be back when I get that. Okay, well, that was quite the ordeal. Do have a new one, and comes with new banjo bolt and crush washers. So the way this works, you take a crush washer, then the banjo bolt goes through your brake line. And you bring your caliper over. You take your other crush washer, goes on the other side. Screw it into the caliper. This brake line is really short and difficult to work with. Snug that down. All right, so we have our saddle on for our brake line. We got our banjo bolt through. For those that don't know, banjo bolt has a little hole in the side of it that the brake fluid goes into, and then it's hollow in the center, so it allows the fluid to come into the bolt and then down into the brake caliper. And we'll break the bleeder loose and let this self bleed while we do the next step in the brakes, which is pulling the axle. As you can see right now, there's no tension on the brake line, but I will need the drain pan for when I pull the axle out. So take a hook and we'll just hang the caliper up, let it bleed. So this is a very short brake line. I suppose I could try and take the nut out there, but I'd rather not. Plus it goes to a hard steel line beyond that, so I don't want to put too much pressure on that either. and risk breaking that. Okay, these bolts right here are 15 millimeter. Helps you have it in reverse. Alright, they do not want to come loose with the impact. This side is much tighter than the other side was. Alright, those are all now loose. Switch over to the impact. Couple little taps, slides right out. Like I said, you want to have a catch basin to catch the axle grease. Comes out. Take a rag, wipe the axle as you pull it out. And just stand it up off to the side. Alright, so now we have this ratcheting nut. So you will need to put it back on, you will need a special tool. To get it off, you probably could gently tap it out, but in order to tighten it down to the correct torque specs, you will need this tool that I'm going to show you. So we have this tool here. What it is it's a castle nut tool, and you can either get the one tool separately, or you can get the kit. I'll put a link in the description. I got this off of Amazon as well. This kit here comes in a pretty nice case, and it comes with just about anything you might need, because I never know what vehicle I'm going to end up with down the road, and I also like to help others out whenever the need arises if I'm able to. I just got the kit. So you can see the teeth on here, and those line up with those little slots up there. This takes a 1/2 inch wrench. And this isn't on very tight at all. The torque specs for this, when it goes back on, is 60 pounds. And then if you're reusing your old bearings, you back it off 7 clicks. And if you're using new bearings, you back it off 5 clicks. So that unscrews. Comes out. Wrap it up so it doesn't get dirt. Now, behind here, behind that, is your outer wheel bearing. And you will want to protect that if you're going to reuse it. What I do is I slide it out a little bit out, and then drop it in the dirt. So what I do is I like to gently slide it out, have your hand in front of it, and then bring it forward till it comes out, catch it, and then you're going to want to wrap it up in a paper towel just to keep it from getting dirt in it. Set that off to the side with your nut. All right, now you can slide your whole assembly out. You want to drain the axle grease out of it. And like I said, then you have these 8 bolts that bolt the rotor to the Dully extension. Now this can be a challenge because there's nothing really to hold on to and then use a torque, use it 2 hands on a wrench and hold it. If you have another person to hold the rotor, that would be ideal. These bolts on the other side came out with the impact and the short extension, so hopefully this one will be the same. Those are 15mm. And by using the short extension, you don't lose a lot of torque. You just still lose some. Absolutely none of them want to come out. So now, figure something else out. Lovely. All right, so the way I'm doing it, I got this pry bar. It is wedged underneath on the lug nuts. And then, well, I got one of them, and now it's got, now that I've got you guys on, it doesn't want to. Then hold the rotor, and I have my breaker bar. Push down and break them loose. Alright, now that they're all broken loose, should be able to just spin them out with the impact. Alright, so there's all 8 of those out. Alright, so now you want to break this loose from this, since we're saving this and this is junk. A couple wraps. And it should just pop free. Alright, now while we're in here, we can take a look at our emergency brake. Still has plenty of life left on it, so we won't worry about that. We will clean this up. Right. We have our new brake rotor. Flip it over, and then for South Main Auto, hit this real quick with some brake clean just to get the shipping grease off. Give that a wipe down. And then also for South Main Auto, we'll hit the mating surfaces with some fluid film. Up here in the northeast, we got a salt issue which then causes rust. So this is just going to help slow it down. It's not going to prevent it, but it should help hopefully allow things to come apart in the future easily. Alright, let me set you down here. take your brake rotor, put that down, and we take our bolts, get them all started by hand. And we can run them all down. Now you're going to want to torque them to spec. You can use the pry bar or, you know, someone else to help hold. Alright, so the torque spec on these is 111 foot-pounds. It was kind of difficult, so I didn't film it, but it's 111. Alright, so once you have this all cleaned off to your satisfaction, we'll start getting it reassembled. Just make sure that there's no dirt on anything. Should slide right up onto the axle. Take your bearing. If you're reusing the bearing, or planning on reusing the bearing, just look at it, make sure there's no nicks or burrs on anything. It should still have axle grease in it. If you're putting in new bearings, just coat the new bearings with either a light coating of axle grease, or you could use the rear end fluid. You don't need to pack them like you would on you see the video of a Ford Sports Track. That's rear wheel drive, so you have to pack the front bearings with grease, because the rear axle fluid actually lubricates these bearings. You don't need to put a ton of lubricant on them, you just want them not dry, so that when you first start the vehicle, for the axle, the rear axle fluid comes out and lubricates everything, you're not running anything dry. And we take our nut here, and it does have a little tab here which goes into that groove right there. So you set that in place and start screwing it down by hand. Always try and start any bolt or nut by hand. You don't want to cross thread these things. And you take your castle nut tool, we'll put that in, and we'll screw this down, and you can spin your your axle as you're screwing it in. This gets torqued down to 60 foot-pounds. And there's 60. And then you want to back it off, because I'm reusing the bearing, 7 clicks. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'll tighten 1 click. There we go. There's 7. So now that is all set. Then we take our drive shaft. Just confirm that it's clean. And that slides in. Now you're gonna have to play with it a little bit as you get to the differential to get it to line up with the gears. All right, this one went in pretty easy. Now, your holes don't line up. Don't panic. This still spins freely. You don't need to keep moving it in and out trying to line them up. So, you move that to line the holes up, and again, you want to start them by hand. And if you notice, this isn't in all the way, so we need to try and actually, before we do that, before you put your bolts in, just you want to confirm that it is tight to the axle. There we go. That just seated. Now you see how it's tight now? All right, just fell out. Okay. There we go. Now we can get our bolts started. Now these get torqued to 98 foot-pounds. Alright, so there's that. Now we can move back to our brake caliper. So we've had this self-bleeding for a while we've been working on the rotor. Now, I was going to try and load this thing in place, but it'll be easier to do it the normal way. So you're going to want to take the caliper off the bracket, just like you would when it was on the car. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we have the bracket. And it just slips in. The other one. That one just slips in. And we can load our brakes. These are the same front and inside and outside, so you don't need to worry about that. Alright, so now we have our pads in, and even though these are brand new, you can take and just double check the grease on them. And just make sure they have a little coating of grease to make them slide. It's easier to take them apart now and make sure than it is to make an assumption and end up with frozen slide bolts. You may need to burp the baffles since they are brand new. You can go and install that. So that just slips on over the rotor. Slide it down, find our bolt hole, get that started in. They can be a bear if you're trying to do it like I am from behind, I mean from the front without looking, but they're usually not too difficult. Once you got those started, now you can take your new caliper and again we'll just hit it with a little brake lube just to cut down on the squeaks and help hopefully slow down some rusting up here in the Northeast. Now for the 2000 there are two different brake calipers. There's ones that have, it's called a Phoenix or Phoenix. I'm not exactly 100% certain how to pronounce it, but it's a composite material, and from what I saw they can corrode and stick to the brake pad, and then they will break when you go in to change them. And the recommendations that I saw were to switch to steel, so that's what I got. I got steel pistons versus the other pistons. So hopefully these will last a good long time. Now the brake caliper itself is 14 millimeter. You want to make sure that your guide pin doesn't end up on top of the caliper. You want to make sure that it sits in its little pocket when you're tightening it down. So get that snug. So I don't know if you can see that. See how that's sitting up on here? It's not in its little pocket, so we need to loosen that a little bit. And then spin it so it sits in its pocket. And then we'll tighten that down. Again, just till it's snug. Now the bracket bolts are 18. We'll tighten those down. Alright, then you want to torque the caliper pins to 27 foot-pounds, and you want to torque the bracket to 128 foot-pounds. Alright, sorry about that. The camera died. Card got full. So now we're gonna bleed the brakes. So it's much easier with somebody else. They do make equipment to bleed it yourself, but if you can have someone else, then by all means. Okay, pump it up. Is it getting stiff at all? Hold. Pump it up. Hold. Pump it up. Hold. Pump it. Hold. Pump. Hold. All right. So there we are. There's no bubbles coming out, so that should be good. Just snug that down. You don't need to go crazy with it. Then you go on and hit this with something to keep things from sticking to it. So we'll hit that with some fluid film and just about out. Want to hit wherever the wheels will sit, just to keep them from freezing. Don't want to get it on your brake rotor. If you do, make sure you get it off. Little brake clean isn't gonna hurt anything. All right, so we have all that done. Alright, then you bring the wheels in and be smart about it and don't try and put them on backwards. it up. Line the lug nuts up and slide her on. Now when you put your outer wheel on, you want to make sure that you can access your your valve stem through one of these holes. So just be mindful of that. That on, and then our valve stem is right there, not really accessible, so we'll slide it out, move it one, actually we'll move it probably 2 or 3 to try and line that up better. Alright, so there's that. Get our lug nut started by hand. And now run them down with the impact. Alright, there's that. Now you torque them down to 165 foot-pounds. So with this, to get it off the lock, you jack it up. You can see the lock lever coming up as the pressure comes off of it. All right, once it's up enough, you flip it all the way up. And now you can come over here, release your jack, it comes down. And I find that if I had one complaint, it doesn't fully go down by itself. Not a huge deal, you just give a little persuasion and it comes down. But as far as safety goes, yeah, they're top notch. I'm glad I got them. Okay, so there's changing the rear brakes on your 2000 F350 Dully. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. As always, God bless. Have a wonderful day.